G'day guys, it's Luke from Hardkorr Campers, and this is how to set up your 2.3F tent. Before we even start it, the number one thing you must do before anything are the stabilizer legs. When that tent folds over, there is going to be quite a lot of leverage hanging on that side of the camper. It won't tip, but safety is paramount, so that's the first thing I'm going to do. With the camper, we do provide you with a little winding bar, and this is going to be located in your pantry drawer. Now, you may have another spot for this, but this is where we just put it in straight from the warehouse. You do have a stabilizer leg on every corner of the camper. Ideally, you would like it to be straight, but we are in a warehouse and we're not out in the country. So obviously this is going to dictate, you know, how you're going to set it up. You can have it on a 45 or on an angle. You will determine what is best for your setup and where you are. I'm not putting too much pressure on it at the moment. I just want the feet to be touching the ground initially because we're going to fine tune it to the other side. Obviously, once the tent sort of folds over that way, you're going to have a lot of weight over here. This is the side that you want to be set in place, and then we'll work at these ones. We've just done the stabilizer legs. This thing is pretty solid, it's not going anywhere. What we're going to do now is turn the power on, undo the latches, and then we've got a cool remote that you can do by yourself and you can watch it come over. So you just need to turn your main power on and then the little switch underneath here. With the remote, there's a little on-off button on the side there, which is already on. I just undo the one latch on this side, undo the second latch, and then we can watch it go out. So as it's coming out, you just want to watch the camper, make sure it's all nice and stable. You might see the camper tilt just the tiniest little bit, but just keep an eye on everything, make sure nothing's, you know, skipping, hopping, anything like that, and it's just a nice, smooth downward action. About there, okay. So from here, we do provide two stabilizing poles for the underside of the tent. We just want to latch it in here, like that. Like that. We will let this come down. And then this still has a little bit to go, so I'm going to keep retracting it down. Okay, so you want to hold in the button until it stops completely, so it's fully retracted down. You also do have a button inside the camper, so if this ever fails, you can do it that way as well. Once this is nice and level, just with your eye, make sure it's all nice and flat. This is all the way down, like so. One single press like that. Don't jack it up like that, because it is connected to the rams. Nice and level, just like that. Okay, so before we start to inflate the actual tent itself, there's two things we've got to do. This first padded cover, it usually just sits on top of the canvas. We'll just cover our ram with it now, just so we don't hurt ourselves if we're climbing in and out. And then there's three straps at the back there, so I'll just take my shoes off. When you do these straps, just chuck them back in the little gunnel, you'd almost call it, just so it keeps it out of the way. Not least, there's a little air valve, which is the same way you would deflate your tent. We just need to make sure that the valve is in, so when we inflate it, the air's just not going to nowhere. So that's in at the moment. We can now inflate our tent. We have just prepared everything for the tent to inflate itself now. All we have to do is turn on the compressor. There's a little button on the right, on the downward position, it is now off, but if we press it upwards, it turns on the compressor. From here, I'm just gonna try and help the tent lift up a little bit. So what I mean by that is that the air rushes in from this corner, and you can see it's all folded down now, and it kind of creates a bit of a pinch area. If I just help this upwards like that, let the air in, get in a little bit, it'll get to a point where it'll basically just set itself up. Just make sure when it does inflate, this isn't over backwards. just have this nice and free flowing, and it should set itself up quite nicely. So the compressor does have a sensor on it. So once there's enough pressure in there, it'll stop, sending air in, and basically that's all you have to do. From here, you do have a series of bungees that wrap around the whole camper, or the tent I should say, sorry. And what that's going to do, if it's raining, obviously it's not just pulling in and going straight into the tent, it's going to keep it nice and under. Like that. That's all pretty nice. So from here, all we've got to do now are these 9 wireframe poles, which is going to keep all your canvas nice and tight and spread it out like that. All we have to do is undo the windows, put the poles in, and for the most part, that is the tent done and dusted. This side here uses the 2 shortest poles that you'll see inside the tent. Just like that. The tent, they all have the same length pole, so don't worry about mixing and matching. The last 2 poles you'll have to do are the front entry ones. You've got a long one and a short one. The short one's going to go on this side here, and then the long one will go directly in the middle. So that. And that is your tent done. Obviously, I'm going to do the windows up now because we don't need to have flies and everything like that come in, but that's pretty much it. I'm going to show you how to pack down your tent on the 2.3F. You do have 9 poles, or 9 wire poles on the outside of the tent. But first things first, we're going to undo the windows so we can access them. Now, this is a brand new trail and I'm a little bit pedantic, so I'm going to take my shoes off, but it is a pretty tough fabric, so you don't have to, depending on your conditions. Now, you can start from the front or the back. It doesn't really matter, just as long as all these poles come out. So once you've taken out all the poles from the canvas here, it's probably good practice to redo these windows again. That way, when we go to, pack it up again, you haven't got bits and pieces and canvas just, sprayed out everywhere. So all I've done here is that all the poles that I've removed from this side of the tent here, I've just placed over here. Just as long as they're nice and flat, that's fine. This back one has a pretty interesting design here, just so you can get tension on it like that. That just is gonna live back here. And you've got your 2 little short poles that go into the awning frame there. What I'm gonna do now is take out these 2 poles, hop outside, and then deflate the tent. And then we're just gonna deflate the tent now. So to deflate the tent, there's a little spring-loaded, you'd almost call it a button inside this circle here. If you just hold that in. So from here, we have just deflated the tent. The way that the tent holds itself up, there's a little spring-loaded button around here when it's inflated, and that's held together with its pressure. So obviously that's keeping it airtight. So as we begin to pack this up, any air that's going to want to rush out, it will. So all I'm going to do now is, because we do have what we would call a creasing point in the middle because the tent does fold over, I'm going to try and bring some of the canvas to the main section of the bed, like now. And then from here, I'm going to do all the bungees on the outside, and that's going to, release the tension. And then when we pack it in, it's all going to be nice and neat. So we're just going to undo these bungees now. Obviously you can see it's looped underneath this edge there, and that's keeping it nice and tight. The corners can be a little bit tricky. So what I do is grab the bungee here, push it forward, and you can feel for it there, and just rip it over like that. So it is a backpack style latch here almost. And when you want to put tension on it, you don't want to put too much where it's getting a little bit, you'll know what's right and wrong. But once you've got pillows and blankets in here, obviously this will be filled out a bit more. You're just trying to keep it in place. You're not trying to, ratchet strap it on sort of thing. So we'll do the one in the middle. And that'll go down like that. We do need to take off this padded cover. All this does is when you're climbing in and out of bed, it's just a nice landing for your knees, because right underneath there is what brings the tent back over and then opens it up as well. This can just sit in the middle of the tent. It doesn't have to be anywhere in particular. So that's where I'm going to put that one. Obviously, before we send this tent over, we've got to remove the two stabilizing poles. With these ones, they're kind of like an off-road four-wheel drive jack sort of style. There's a little silver button, let's call it a latch for the time being. You push that up, it's going to free it. And there's virtually no weight on this anyway, so it's just going to come up. It'll release itself, and then you pull the pin out, and that'll come out like that. Just so you don't lose them, just chuck them back in there, and then we'll put this straight in the camper. We removed everything that we need to. Before we send the tent over, it's just good practice to do a circle of the camper. Make sure we have done everything we need to do. So there's no bungees on there, there's no pole sticking out, obviously, and the tent is already down. Everything looks pretty good, so now we can just send it over. If you're doing this by yourself, it's super easy. There's a little button here. If you press it down, it's going to fold it up, and if you press it up, it's going to set it up. So all I'll do now is hold that in, and you'll get to a point where you can see through the gap. You'll start to see the top of the tent, and you'll use that as a gauge of where the tent's at. Okay, so we are now at halfway. It's a good time to check and see how all the canvas is doing. That all looks very happy up there, but I'll just make a little adjustment just to bring it over a bit more, and that's all good there. We are going to supply a remote for this, because if you're trying to do this by yourself, this is more so important for when you're setting it up. You're not going to be able to tell once it is level. So if I just push it in like that, it's going to bring itself in. And you do have to hold this down, and you'll make adjustments throughout when you're using it to when it's closed up or when it's actually set up. You can do this by yourself. As long as these two rubbers are touching across the whole edge of the tent, that's fine, because what's actually going to keep it dust proof is these latches here. We do have two of these, so just on the back here as well. Like that, and that is absolutely fine. From here, we can close the shower tent now. We could have actually closed it during the pack up, but at least with it open, you can keep an eye on how all the rubbers and all your canvas is doing. But you just want to make sure that across every single edge, there's no canvas sticking out, and that's all good to drive. All right, guys, thanks for watching. That is the full setup of the 2.3 tent. If we've done a good enough job, you should have no dramas. But if you've got any questions, give us a phone call, send us an email, or reach out to us through the website.